I believe strongly that by including step one, organs into your diet can be hugely beneficial because organs are nature's ultimate multivitamin. We hear that time and time again. But if you compare gram per gram for organs to any other food on the planet that we know of, right? Organs win by a long shot every single time.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We have a very interesting conversation for you today. My guest was Dillon Randolph, who is the head researcher over at Heart and Soil, and we talked about the topic of fertility and infertility. This is a very interesting, slightly scary, but also empowering story because we realize that a lot more is in our hands than we are often given credit for. But we have to face facts, and the facts are that we are in an infertility crisis. It's 1 in 5 women of reproductive age right now that cannot get pregnant. We know that men's testosterone levels are declining at a rapid rate, that the health and motility of their sperm counts are following that trend aggressively. Again, it sounds scary, and maybe it is, but we're here to bring solutions to the table too. We're here to talk about how we can recapture our own health, and the vitality is achievable for all of us when we know how to build a real animal-based diet to thrive on, but also a holistic lifestyle practice built on the backbone of solid habits and routines and keeping stress in check. Because if we are balanced and we are healthy and we are thriving, then this reproductive birthright is ours for the taking. But when our bodies are not healthy, and we're stuck in scarcity, and we're inflamed, and we're stressed, and we don't have that adequate level of nutrition and micronutrients, that the body kind of shuts down and constricts. It signals that it's not the time to be reproducing right now. And how much of that is going on collectively? How much other factors outside of just food are at play here? From microplastics to toxins to this stress, and to everything else that's going on in the world that keeps us locked in this scarcity mindset. We introduced the Heart and Soil film, Nourished, which is a beautifully put together documentary about this topic. And then we get into our live caller segment of the show, where we speak to a professional wrestler. We talk about sleep issues, and we talk about doing animal-based on a budget. This show is packed full of hope. It's packed full of some harrowing facts, but it's always threaded with this empowerment that health is our birthright and it's ours for the taking. I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. I've got a very exciting guest today. This is Dillon Randolph. He is the chief researcher at Heart and Soil and a man of many talents. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and we'll get into a very fun conversation today. Dillon, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
So good. So good. It's great to be here. Yeah. So I'm a chief research officer at Heart and Soil. I'm also a licensed physician assistant. I've been working with Dr. Paul for almost 4-5 years now. And it's been a wild ride, super fun. It was challenging for me to step away from conventional medicine, something that I thought I was going to be in for the rest of my life, and choose an unexplored path of nutrition and investigating and research. But it's been probably the best decision of my life.
Yeah, I love it, man. And there's some wisdom in that. I think we appreciate our people that go off the kind of trajectory and they verge off the path and find a lot more meaning in it. And I think that's just, it speaks to who you are and it speaks to the level of, passion that you have for this. And this is a really passionate topic of yours. You've been digging into this a lot recently with the team. And our conversation today is all centered around infertility, fertility for both men and women, and this just huge topic. So where do we even begin with a topic this broad? Like, what have you been diving into? What's super interesting here? And how do we talk about this topic and give our listeners some really juicy and actionable information?
Yeah, I think starting with just the conventional recommendations on diet is a really good place to start, because at the end of the day, prevention is key. Everybody wants to prevent disease. We don't want to get to the treatment phase.
Yeah.
So if we can focus on prevention and ensuring that we're getting an adequate amount of nutrition, sunlight, all the lifestyle behaviors that follow with good, optimal health, libido, and energy, that is going to be the best approach that any of us can take. So looking at number one, the problem, right? 1 in 5 women today between the ages of 15 and 49 are unable to get pregnant. It's a huge number, right?
That's a big number. Yeah.
And it's not all women. Men can contribute to this problem too.
Right.
They can have decreased sperm function, quality, etc. But what are people being told?
Yeah.
Right. And if you just look at some of the common recommendations here, eatright.org, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the fertility diet pattern literally tells us to eat less animal protein, more vegetable proteins, more high fiber, low glycemic carbohydrate rich foods, including whole grains, right? More vegetarian sources of iron and fewer meat sources. And this, I believe, is a problem.
Yeah, so knowing what we know and kind of being more in this world of animal-based nutrition, because we know it's so nutrient dense, and the removal of processed foods, one of which we know is very problematic, this emphasis on grains, gluten-containing grains, and how that can disrupt the gut microbiome, which has all kinds of upstream and downstream problems. This seems kind of counter to what we would recommend as a solid dietary foundation to create health, which obviously would impact fertility. So what's going on with these recommendations? Why are they so askewed? And do you think that, this kind of information is actually causing more harm than it's helping people get fertile and get healthy?
Yeah, because it's missing the quality piece and the bioavailability piece.
Right.
A lot of this protein from plants and the micronutrients from plants are significantly less bioavailable.
Right.
Animal sourced nutrients, animal sourced proteins are going to be much more bioavailable and usable by the body, and will ensure that we're not only absorbing these nutrients, but using these nutrients to have better mitochondrial function, to ultimately have better hormone profiles, a better life. Everything comes along with that.
Yeah. So is it safe to say, if that is the case and people are prioritizing kind of the building blocks of their diet on things that aren't as nutrient dense, aren't as bioavailable, that we're causing a body just not to be its healthiest state? And I think it's probably fair to say that a body that is not abundantly healthy is going to have a harder time getting pregnant. And even from the male perspective, a body that's not nutritionally kind of fueled adequately with those building blocks, with those hormones, is not going to be producing healthy sperm. So it goes both ways. If that is the case, then what is the solution? What's at the root cause of this? We're not eating these foods that are fueling us. We're not eating these foods that build a body adequately. So what do we do? And what are we missing out on when we don't prioritize animal-based foods?
Well, this is a little bit saddening and a little bit misleading when it comes down to multivitamins. So if you look at Oregon State University, they did a really great view on micronutrient inadequacies and multivitamin supplements. And despite taking multivitamin supplements, the NHANES data, U.S. national surveys indicate that micronutrient inadequacies, even with multivitamin supplements, are a huge problem. And this is underrepresented, I believe, in the nutrition field, science, research. I think so much of the focus has been on technology, genetics, how to beat our environment, almost like how to be better than nature, and less on how do we utilize nature to be healthy, to be optimal, to be fertile.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't just throw multivitamins without taking into consideration the bioavailability, but also something that we're still learning about, the ratios, right? The forms that they come into. There are vitamins. There are different forms of each of the vitamins that come in nature that we probably don't know the full extent to it, right? And how that interacts with the body at a fundamental level is crucial.
Yeah, so that research is very interesting because it's focused on multivitamins, right? Which many people are leaning on to try to get healthier. They believe that they're getting healthier by doing this. But this obviously then branches into prenatal vitamins, right? This is a very same kind of the same constituents are in there, and you're saying that these aren't necessarily helping clear up these nutritional inadequacies. A lot of the time we espouse more of a nature's multivitamin approach that's focused on eating nose to tail and including organs, because we do know those are bioavailable, right? Like these synthetic vitamins are formed basically in a lab that man made, and they basically get excreted a lot of the time, right? So how much of this, multivitamin story is tied to the prenatal story? Because this is something that's pushed on women who are trying to get pregnant and even during pregnancy. And is that potentially not, clearing up these nutritional inadequacies as well? And if that is the case, that has to have some downstream effects on fetal development and also the chances of getting pregnant, right?
100%. And I think this is like another problem of like the fertility story, right? It's like you are told as a woman to take prenatals, you're told to make sure that you're getting these specific micronutrients that helps with fetal development, but also fertility, but the focus isn't on quality. And it's unfortunately widely underrepresented, right? At the end of the day, it's like we need to have a focus on high quality, nutrient dense foods that will provide the specific micronutrients and micronutrient profiles that will adequately replace, restore, rebuild, grow a baby. And focusing on these foods will also, in the long term, create a better picture of health, energy, libido, all the things that everybody wants, physical composition, like building muscle, everything comes along with this. And at the end of the day, when we look at the micronutrient inadequacies in our society, in the United States today, there are so many that aren't even coming close to being optimal. And one last thought on this is people who are sick, people who are stressed psychologically, physically from the environment, they're going to deplete these micronutrient stores even quicker. And they need to pay more attention. But how do you know?
Yeah. And I think, to piggyback on that point, you raise a very valid point about this being stressed and being sick. And as it kind of ties into this fertility story on both sides, men and women, is it fair to assume that a body that is under that stress and is deficient in these micronutrients is also signaling scarcity? It's signaling that there is not abundance, and without that abundance, that's maybe not the right time to think about growing a baby. And we see all kinds of stuff happening again on both sides, right? You said the 1 in 5 women statistic, but we also know that sperm counts and sperm motility in men is tanking, and it's getting significantly lower with these other adaptive hormones. We see trends in lowering testosterone in men, raising infertility. Now we're leaning on more conventional treatments and IVF and fertility practices, which on one hand are beautiful because it allows people to, get pregnant when maybe they couldn't before. But there is a cost to all of this too, right? And I think really addressing this nutritional inadequacy piece is something that you seem very focused on, and it seems very important in the story. So where do we start? If these multivitamins and prenatals aren't doing it, what's a good solution? We've talked about this animal-based diet, but this entourage effect of eating nose to tail, is it safe to assume that what could really be a powerful prenatal vitamin could actually be an animal-based diet plus organs?
100%. And before going into that further, even if you are seeking medical treatment, it doesn't change the fact that you need these micronutrients at a very fundamental level. And sometimes medication can even deplete these micronutrients.
Right.
So you have to always focus on this, whether you're taking medications, whether you're doing in vitro fertilizations, using these assisted reproductive technologies, doesn't change the fact that you need to have essential nutrients in the diet that are going to fuel your reproductive and sexual health.
Yeah.
Organs, liver, heart, kidney, these specific organs are going, especially liver, are going to be containing all of the fat soluble nutrients, the B vitamins, there's going to be minerals, zinc, copper, selenium, so many nutrients that are going to improve your reproductive health, your fertility success. So I believe strongly that by including step 1, organs into your diet can be hugely beneficial, because organs are nature's ultimate multivitamin. We hear that time and time again. But if you compare gram per gram for organs to any other food on the planet that we know of, right? Organs win by a long shot every single time.
It's pretty cool, right? They're really a nutrient dense powerhouse, and we're obviously trying to spread that message. But I'm also focused on, this is the addition story of adding those in, which is incredibly powerful. What's the elimination story now? If you think of this fertility picture and you think about our just modern food systems, full of processed food, full of seed oils, obviously we're talking about health. We obviously know that these foods are a detriment to health. What do you think the story is here? How are these processed foods, how are these seed oils, these gluten-containing grains, artificial sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup, these things that people are eating in abundance, how are these potentially coming full circle into this fertility conversation?
Yeah, I think the most simple answer on that is ultra processed foods equals inflammation. Inflammation is oxidative stress. Oxidative stress left unchecked is going to create oxidative damage and lead to chronic health issues. And if we are not intentionally consuming the right foods, taking into consideration the micronutrient content, the ratio, the forms from animal food sources, and thinking that we are like this eatright.org recommendations that all of our nutrients are going to be coming from more vegetable protein, right? Fewer meat sources of iron. Like iron is not as bioavailable in plants as they are in red meat, in organs. And it's a fact.
Yeah.
And you have to take into consideration all of the plant defense chemicals that can contribute to chelation, right? That are not going to allow those minerals to be absorbed, potentially depleting mineral stores in the body, potentially contributing to this inflammation at the end of the day. So getting rid of seed oils, processed foods, and potentially some of these more inflammatory vegetables in the diet can be super powerful to ensure that you are absorbing all of the micronutrients possible to have a optimized reproductive and sexual health.
Yeah, wonderful. So what are we left with? We obviously keep saying this animal-based pyramid. We're removing this stuff. We're focusing on getting these nutrients in the most bioavailable form. What's a well-rounded diet at a high-level perspective that everybody can eat because it's evolutionarily and ancestrally appropriate, that's going to start creating health and vitality to produce healthy testes, healthy sperm, healthy ovaries, healthy everything involved that's in the reproductive system and fertility? What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Start with organs, as always. The most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. Be intentional about eating enough, and that means enough high-quality, nutrient-dense foods, which is going to include raw dairy, maybe some fermented kefir, right? Things that are helpful for the gut there. Obviously, grass-fed, grass-finished. Proteins from ruminant animals are going to be hugely impactful in terms of just like the protein, the amino acids, and the other micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals that are going to help your body produce and have a healthy hormone profile. Eliminating the most toxic foods, seed oils, processed grains, gluten-containing foods, highly processed sugar, that's going to be the high fructose corn syrups, swapping out any of those polyunsaturated fats for things like tallow, ghee, grass-fed butter. Real animal food sources of fats are going to provide you with the fat-soluble nutrient profile, vitamins A, D, E, K, K2, that are essential for reproductive health, bone health, immune system. All of these things are so important. And so focusing on that protein, carbohydrates from maple syrup, honey, fruit, and then fat from animal sources is going to be hugely beneficial to not just your hormone health, which is ultimately what we're after, is like for all the other the energy, the libido, not getting tired throughout the day, sleeping well, like all these things are super important at a very fundamental level.
Yeah. I think the point that you're making here, which is, we're obviously talking about fertility and infertility on this podcast, but ultimately that's a natural extension of just being healthy. And the information that you just laid out is a way to just be healthy anyway. Even if you're listening to this podcast and you're not maybe in that long-term relationship right now, and this isn't currently your phase of life right now, but one day you want to be a dad, one day you want to be a mom, and how are you going to start kind of like building an insurance plan against that, for that, so that when that time arrives, you're fertile and you're healthy and you can do it. So I think I want to just shift gears very slightly, because we've talked a lot about nutrition and, you know, what to remove and what to add in, which is obviously very important, but we have a life outside of just what we're putting in our mouths, right? We have, you know, stress, and we have potentially environmental factors that are playing into this, and jobs and lives outside of it. So I'm curious, you know, you've been digging into this research, you've been thinking about this from a high level perspective. Aside from the food, what are potentially some other things that are contributing to fertility issues in our environment?
Yeah. So the other factor, right? The environmental toxins, the plastics, the pesticides. And when I think about these stresses in our environment, and what they do to the body, it's once again this like oxidative stress, this inflammation that it has on the body, and how it depletes a lot of these micronutrients. So being intentional about what you're putting your food in, what you're cooking your food in, making sure you're not using non-stick pans, right? Making sure that you're using glass instead of plastic wherever possible. And I have this idea, it's like, really, if you're struggling, like, yeah, try everything, right? Try everything and give it a very good effort. And once you have the diet, you know, dialed in, you're not doing the processed foods, why would you not want to look into, well, what are plastics doing to me? What about my drinking water? Are there microplastics in my drinking water? Yeah. You know, like go the extra invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
We talk about this a lot, you know, in our steps to radical health, and we start where we started the conversation. Like, let's get in those organs. Let's like really fuel your cells with just this nutrient dense powerhouse. Let's remove the processed foods. And then we talk about these other things, like building these healthy habits. So we've got a rock solid foundation, and then we dial it in, right? And then we go looking for all those things that you just said. And maybe that's the last little hurdle that we need to get over to really unlock this fertility piece. And maybe we do need to be very cautious about these fragrances and these toxins and these microplastics. And, you know, a little bit can go a long way. It's probably amazing that if you've never even thought that, oh, wait a minute, I drink plastic water bottles every day and I have like 3 of those things, that removing that is just, I mean, we know it's not harmful. We know it's only going to help. We know it's going to remove some of these harmful chemicals from your system. It's only going to help. But I think, you know, building from that rock solid foundation is massive. And like you said, there's a lot here. So we keep coming back to this idea of stress, right? Oxidative stress, but also like stress psychologically, how that informs physiological stress. And I think we can get pretty freaked out about all of this too when we really start to dig, right? We're like, oh my God, everything's out to kill us. So it's also remaining grounded in yourself too, and like really remembering, if we're talking about these nutritional pieces, to signal abundance and to remind the body that it's safe to reproduce, that we also kind of want to build that into our practices too, right? We might want to have a mindful practice. We might want to get out and make sure we're moving and exercising and getting sunshine. So it really goes a lot more holistic than the nutrition sometimes. But I think that piece that you're focusing on is kind of the entryway, right? It's so important to get right, but this is a very complex piece, and we kind of have to look at the whole system and try and keep that stress as low as possible, oxidative stress from nutrition, and also lifestyle stress, because it's pretty hard being a human.
Yeah, I don't know if I've told anybody this besides my PA friends, but I did my master's thesis on mindfulness, meditation, and the reduction of anxiety, and how powerful it is, and the research on mindfulness. And that doesn't have to be, you know, lock yourself in a room, like put on, the extreme sense of it where, you know, people are meditating for a full hour. It literally could be 2 to 5 minutes, has a substantial effect on your physiology, your biology, and how it can reduce stress. And at the end of the day, psychological stress is a stress.
Yes.
Stress is a stress is a stress. I think you've said that before. Yeah. And whether it's coming from the brain or your environment, these are things that we have control over. Yeah. Right. And at the end of the day, like, we need to be able to provide solutions to people for things they have control over. Yeah. And the mental side of it, the breath work, getting in a cold plunge, like a forced meditation,
Yeah.
maybe a sauna, just being intentional about breathing while you're walking.
Yeah.
Do nasal breathing. Maybe you do some mouth tape at night and
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean? These little things build up over time and can make a huge impact on your overall health.
Wonderful. So I think what we're talking about here is like we're trying to have these conversations to bring awareness to a topic that's probably not getting the level of awareness that we think it deserves. And we hope that this information is empowering. But one of the tools that you're using here at Heart and Soil to bring awareness is kind of these documentary films that you're creating. So before we move into our questions live, we've got some callers on the line that are going to join us in a few minutes. Tell us really quickly about what Heart and Soil is doing with this movie and what is the story you're trying to tell here.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's what we talked about today. It's the foods that have been missing from our diets and the impact that those foods can have on our overall health. This documentary was produced by a fantastic team at Heart and Soil. It is super well done. I believe it will be out by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes. It's going to be there.
If we can link it in the show notes. But this tells the story of animal-based fertility and how individuals who are either struggling with their hormones, their fertility, can use an animal-based diet to improve their chances of getting pregnant, becoming pregnant, and ultimately feeling good for the long term. This isn't a quick fix. Nothing we do is ever going to be a quick fix. We have to be intentional. We have to be disciplined and consistent in order to really see the results that we desire.
I love it. Thank you for your work, and thank you for the team at Heart and Soil for putting that together. It's really powerful stuff. So we're about to move into taking some live calls. So we've got some callers on the line. They're going to jump on. We're going to riff-raff on some questions with them, and let's see what we can get them. Sound good?
Yeah, love it.
All right. First caller on the line today is Stacey from my home state, Tennessee. What's up, Stacey? How you doing? What's the story? What can we help you with?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, Stacey.
My question is sleep. I'm 52 years old, in perimenopause, and since the fall, I have not been getting quality sleep. I fall asleep no problem, sleep for about 2 hours, and then it's like cat naps for the rest of the night. I started taking your supplements, and I've taken quite a few, and I was hoping that would do something, and it's just nothing has helped.
All right, Stacey. So we're going to kind of go dig into this a little bit to see if we can get you some solutions. Okay. So when you say you kind of fall to sleep, I'm assuming you fall to sleep pretty easily and you're waking up at, you said about after a couple of hours. Is there a reoccurring theme there? Are you waking up to go to the bathroom, or are you just waking up because the mind wakes you up for some reason? Just tell me a little bit more of the story.
Nope. I'm waking up. Usually I wake up because I'm hot. I guess I'm getting like hot flashes at night while I'm sleeping. I have the window open, the covers are off, and then I get cold, and I just toss and turn. And there's nothing, I don't have things racing through my mind that are on my mind. I just cannot fall back asleep. And if I do fall back asleep, it's like for 10 minutes. Then I'm up for like another hour. Then I fall asleep for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, so this I know already is very frustrating, because there is nothing quite as frustrating as wanting to go to sleep and being unable to find that peace and that rest. So I'm curious, you said, you've got a cold room and you're keeping it cold. There are some things that you can really look at, especially with the hot flashes, that, they're a little bit of an investment, but it'd probably go a very long way. You can look at things like the Ooler and the Chili Pad and these cooled mattresses that really kind of regulate to your body temperature. I can imagine, that going through these hot flashes, sometimes the window unit AC that you have, or the HVAC system that you have in your house, might not be able to cool you efficiently down. And it's the heat that is signaling you to wake up. We do know that something that your body needs to ease into a restful, deep state of sleep is it needs to lower its core temperature. Right? If your body is raising its core temperature, it's very antagonistic to restful sleep. So something here, we need to try and do something here about temperature manipulation and control, and to try and really drive that down. So whether it's, bumping the AC even lower in your room, taking it down, you'd be surprised at how cold we can get our rooms and have optimal sleep states. We can go as low as 62 and really sleep, kind of mimicking that ancestral idea of a cave, right? Really dark, really cold, and to try and help that. But I also have some follow-up ideas here around potential, lifestyle behaviors, light at night, those kinds of things. But I want to also, ping pong this over to Dillon, so he's can add in anything that he's seeing here or any threads that he wants to pull on.
Yeah, I had a question. When do you usually have your last meal?
Usually between like 5 and 6.
And then when do you go to bed?
And then I usually go to bed between 9 and 10.
Okay, so you are definitely getting sufficient amount of time, because that is one thing always to take into consideration. And it's something that you might even experiment with, is maybe, I don't know the volume of your food you're eating, but maybe you have more volume in terms of protein, fat, carbohydrates from solid sources, and decrease the volume of that last meal, and just ensuring that you're giving your body adequate time to digest the foods properly, to allow your body to get in a more restful, deep sleep state.
Okay.
I'm also curious real quick, Stacey, because perimenopause, your body's obviously going through a lot of change, right? A lot of stuff is shifting internally, and that can be a stressor in and of itself. So I want to kind of zoom out as well. We're obviously focusing on sleep as the big kind of elephant in the room here, but I want to kind of reverse engineer and look at the whole day. When you're going through a change like this, it's very, very important to adequately hydrate, adequately, get your nutrition really dialed in. You said you added in supplements. I'm just curious, is there a potential here for some under eating because you're not feeling so good? Are we under a lot of stress anyway in life right now? Like, what's going on outside of the sleep picture that might be something that we could look at here to really just kind of buffer you against this, so we can make sure you're adequately fueled, feeling really good in your body, which is only going to help sleep as we go through this like pretty difficult phase. Is there anything that kind of resonates there?
I really am not undergoing any stress right now. I have been inputting all of my meals into a chronometer. So I'm hitting all of my macro goals. I'm usually eating just 2 meals a day and maybe like a smoothie, in between. But no, I get outside for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half to take, to go for a walk in the sun. Like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and I'm working out with weights just about every day. I don't watch TV really, so I'm not just laying around. Like I am forcing myself, but I do know, like, after I do my little weight regimen and I go for a walk, when I come back, I usually have to take a nap because I'm just completely exhausted.
I'm curious, how many carbohydrates are you including into your diet right now?
I want to say it's between 120 and 150.
Okay, so that's a pretty solid amount of carbohydrates in the diet too. That's another thing that we commonly see, and it's also at least important to consider, the amount of activity level. Like, are you under consuming the carbohydrate piece of this? And we do know, like, in low carbs, you can be in a quote unquote low carb state, consuming 100 to 160 grams of carbohydrates if you are being super intentional about your activity. You're walking, you're resistance training, you're doing everything right. Maybe you are under consuming carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. The whole macronutrient conversation comes back into play, and just making sure that you're adequately fueling your body. So what calories are you at right now overall?
I want to say the calories are probably around 2,200.
2,200.
It's a solid place. I actually kind of want to address something that you said, Stacey, that I think might be helpful right now, which actually might be dialing it back. You said it sounds like you're really dialed in at this point. You said you're lifting every day. That's a lot. Stress is stress
not
again.
Every day. I'm going to say about 4 times a week probably.
Okay. You might just want to, because it really depends, on the level of intensity there and the amount of ample time to recover, etc. But sometimes when you're going through a big shift like this, maybe it's a smart move to take the foot off the accelerator a little bit more and think about that parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, right? Like a lot of those things are quite sympathetic, that go, 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 do. And it sounds like you've got some really good practices in there, you know, the walk in the sun and getting outside, which is wonderful. But I'm just curious, as we kind of dig here and kind of come up against these roadblocks, whether a little more nurturing and a little more stillness and a little more of that parasympathetic activity is what your body's really calling for right now. Because I do know, and I could pretty much, you know, assert this with a good amount of confidence, that if you're not sleeping well because of this issue that's coming through, you are not recovering well. It's stressful. It's depleting kind of adequate energy and resources from your body. So maybe as we go through this transition, which the good news is it's not a life sentence, right? It's a little kind of thing that we have to go through, and it's going to pass at some point. That maybe what we need right now is a little more stillness, a little more nurturing, a little more kind of, you know, dial back a little bit, maybe 2 lifts a week and an extra walk in its place and a mindfulness practice in the morning, and pull out that journal or whatever really resonates with you. But it's something that I think I would, you know, experiment with and lean into as you're going through this, because that lack of sleep becomes a huge stressor in and of itself. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting note, because I am really bad at dialing it back. And there was a point there where I have an Aura ring, and I noticed that my heart rate variability was declining and my heart rate was increasing. And at that point I was like, I need to stop. So I literally took a full week off. I didn't lift at all, just to allow my body to regenerate and to really focus on healing and recovery. And I think this is one of the most powerful things that individuals can do, is just dialing back a little bit and understanding that the dialing back can actually improve all the strength, the performance goals that you're really after. Another thing, I would like to follow up with you after this, and we can set you up with one of our health guides at Heart and Soil to give you a little bit of extra, you know, support, some
Love
other
that.
insights, so that we can make sure that, you know, we're taking care of you the best that we can.
Love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in, Stacey. And a surprising one, get yourself an Epsom salt bath. Have a soak.
Try that,
You
yeah.
usually sleep like a bloody king after having a magnesium salt bath. So give it a whirl and see how that feels. But we appreciate you calling in, and follow up with the team. The team will be following up with you, rather, to give you some extra support and get you what you need.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Osiris, who's calling in from Rhode Island. What a cool name. What can we help you with, Osiris?
Thank you. And how's it going?
It's going well, man. How are you?
Doing great.
Amazing.
And I wanted to talk to you guys about, the name Osiris, I'm a professional wrestler, and that's where the name comes from.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I started an animal-based diet last year. I found CarnivoreMD on YouTube, and just kind of started following some of the things he was talking about. I had found years ago that my body functions really well off of meat, fruit, and sweet potatoes without the skin.
Nice.
I found that out through working with a nutritionist. So hearing the things CarnivoreMD was saying, they resonated really, with me. I have a supplement company sponsorship, believe it or not, and I actually take some Heart and Soil supplements as well.
Love it.
I had stopped taking turmeric due to advice from CarnivoreMD, and I had noticed in the past when I had stopped taking turmeric, my joints would hurt. But now, completely eliminating breads and pastas and things like that from my diet, I was able to take the turmeric. My joints don't hurt anymore. It's amazing. But my question is, in regards to supplementation, what do you guys recommend as far as for like a hard training athlete, to make sure they're getting all their nutrient bases covered? Should I be taking a multivitamin and some Heart and Soil supplements on top? Can I get everything I need from the Heart and Soil?
Awesome question, Osiris. So first thing I just want to celebrate is we're Radical Health Radio, and you're a professional wrestler, and that's radical,
That's
my friend. It's very
Yeah.
intense, man. It's very intense on your body. I can only, imagine the the constant kind of putting yourself in that, the performance, the stress, and the physical toll that it takes on your body. So you definitely need to be thinking about this realm of fueling yourself adequately, clearing up those nutrient deficiencies. Dillon can really speak to a high level on the micronutrients and things that you could potentially add in. So I'll kind of take a little more of a zoomed out perspective before I hand it over to him and just say, we believe that, you know, organs are nature's multivitamin. So it's not necessarily that you're going to be missing out by not pulling the generic vitamin off the shelf, like a Centrum or a Men's this, that, and the other, because we can kind of clear that in a very bioavailable form with organs. But just celebrating this, you know, inquisition that you've had around your diet, and there's experiments of finding something that works for you, and listening to Paul's advice and questioning some of the mainstream narratives, and just really on an animal-based diet with this amount of activity, really prioritizing that protein and really not being afraid of getting a good intake of carbohydrates. You know, these two together, you know, the fat kind of comes in as an entourage effect of prioritizing animal protein, but the carbohydrates as well, you know, just to replenish that muscle glycogen after you're going out there and you're performing under these high intensity bouts. And I'm sure you've got training outside of that for, you know, your own kind of mobility and injury prevention and body composition goals. So just really making sure that in a stress state where you're putting your body through a lot, that you're getting the adequate nutrition from the macro perspective and really eating a lot of food. You're going to need to put a lot of energy back into this tank. And then on your question around micronutrients and organs and what could potentially be missing, I want to hand it over to Dillon to see if he has anything to add there.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to just say before Heart and Soil, in between Heart and Soil, and after PA school, I was able to do a lot of health coaching and lab work review. And a lot of these individuals were taking a lot of different supplements. And one of the first steps that I would always take with them while, you know, doing this with a trained professional is very important, but just dialing back and eventually getting off of a lot of these multivitamins, these the plant medicines that people are taking every single day is usually, and what I found, a really good first step. And then really focusing on organs, you know, multivitamins. Organs are our multivitamins. And specifically, if, you know, we're not going to eat fresh foods, then we consider beef organs to kind of really hit that multivitamin figure when it comes down to Heart and Soil supplements. But for you in particular, who is really looking to kind of level up, it seems, your performance, and this is the stack that I take. Warrior is going to help substantially. It has CoQ10, B12, riboflavin, folate, these specific micronutrients that are going to help fuel energy. It's almost like a pre-workout. I really love Warrior. Whole package for the benefits that come from testicle, as you can imagine. It is where testosterone is created. It is essential. Hormones are essential also for muscle building and feeling good, right? So whole package. And then mood, memory, and brain. Phosphatidylserine is one of the most well-studied compounds that is found in brain extract, and mood, memory, and brain has that. So phosphatidylserine has been shown to improve the stress response and the overall physical performance in many different randomized controlled trials. So those three are the supplements that I take. And then if I was going to consider a multivitamin, then I would just throw in beef organs. And I mean, at that point, along with a well-constructed animal-based diet, you're going to be pretty much locked and loaded.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that high-level athletes need high-level fuel, and with all those bases covered, I think that would be. So it's cool that you said you actually ended up with some Heart and Soil supplements as well, but we'll set you up with the health and success team to get you that optimal stack so you can really perform at an incredible level and keep doing what it is that you love to do, which is to wrestle and entertain. Yeah. So keep being radical, Osiris. Thank you very much for calling in.
Appreciate it.
Next up on the line, we have Garrett calling in from Michigan, who has a question about fat. What is your question, Garrett? How can we help you?
Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for having me on. I'm calling from Michigan. I am a 80s baby. I grew up in, the food pyramid where a low-fat diet was, considered healthy.
Yeah.
So coming out of that psychology, I went to an animal-based diet in this past year and a half. tremendously cut out vegetables, spending a lot of time with organs, meats, honey, dairy, as Paul Saladino would break down. And I've come to this debate with my fiance about the consumption of fat. She's still kind of stuck in the mentality that too much fat is bad for your health, and I'm trying to explain fat soluble vitamins, how our brain function and everything's tied into it. So more or less, my question for you is, how much fat is too much fat in your diet? I've brought up Inuits in Alaska. They eat a diet rich in whale blubber, and they don't have the health problems that many people have. So again, how much fat is too much fat in the diet?
Love it. Thank you very much, Garrett. I'm going to let Dillon go over the recommendations and some of the targets here, but I'm going to add just a little kind of teaser into a couple of things you said, which I think are really important. Number one, well done for educating yourself and arming yourself with appropriate information, but understanding, convincing your fiance that this lifestyle is actually, grounded in logic and ancestrally appropriate ideas is going to be easier just when you're a living example of it, right? We often say you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, but you can make that horse very thirsty and curious by being a living, breathing, walking, talking example of radical health. Now, too much fat is a tricky one, and we do have some parameters around it, but it's only tricky, I think, when you're eating the processed fats that dysregulate appetite. It's kind of hard to overdo natural fats when you're following the animal-based pyramid, which it sounds like you're doing an amazing job of, because they're very naturally satiating. It's hard to overdo real food when you eat in alignment with the nature of with the laws of nature. So I think, it's more about focusing on what are the fats in your diet. And it sounds like you've done a really good job of getting rid of these highly inflammatory seed oils and replacing those with the fats that come in the the form of meat and fatty cuts of meat, as well as butter and tallow and all of those other yummy animal fats. So I just wanted to add that there, man. Great job on what you've done so far, and Dillon can kind of dial it in with some recommended ranges and ultimately answer the question of how much fat is too much fat.
Yeah, so the ranges that we suggest is that 0.8 to 1.0 grams of fat per your ideal body weight. So this can shift obviously on if you're looking to build muscle, you're looking to lose fat, because at the end of the day, calories do matter. Yeah. Right. But the quality of those calories are going to affect your, long-term goals. You can overeat, right? Yeah. And what I believe to be is a really cool thing about nature is like, it will tell you that you've eaten too much. If you try to overconsume fat from butter or eat too much fatty steak, you will feel it and you will not feel good. You will become nauseous. You will potentially have, bowel movement issues. So I would say it's important just to stick in that range, and there's no reason to overfeed yourself on the fat. Yeah. And what you find in a steak, maybe adding a tablespoon of butter on top of steak, ground beef, or whatever. I'll do butter in some cooked apples, which is really delicious. Yeah. I highly suggest that. Yeah. But there's no need to, eat a stick of butter and then the fattiest ribeye, and you know what I mean? So I would just really focus on the whole food sources that we suggest, and you'll see that by consuming those, you'll fall into that, 0.8 to 1.0 range. When you are looking to build, then you can actually use fat and carbohydrates as a way to build, right? To gain weight, to improve strength. But at the end of the day, when you're consuming healthy fats from nature, from animals, you are going to be filling your satiety cup. You're going to be filling up your micronutrients, especially the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, K2. And just by focusing on animal fats from whole food sources is going to provide your body with that abundance of it's really information, right? Yeah. Abundant signaling to ensure that you're maintaining a healthy body weight, and the concern of eating too much fat really disappears, because it's what is in nature, it is what is presented to us, and it's ultimately what is going to make you feel good.
Yeah. And I know that a part of that battle as well is convincing ourselves a lot of the time, like you said, coming from that low fat paradigm and era, as well as the people that love us and care about us. I mean, I imagine the reason your fiance is questioning this is she's probably bought into myths like too much fat is also, what about the whole cholesterol piece and the saturated fat piece? So it can get really sticky and it can get really nuanced, and we have lots of resources showing why a lot of that data is observational and it's not necessarily grounded again in ancestrally, kind of aligned principles. And we don't believe that they are unhealthy foods at all. Actually, we believe that they're the building blocks of life and that they make up your cells, and they're very important for the backbone of your hormonal production and your testosterone and your health. So, as per Dillon's recommendation, I don't know whether you've been tracking food or you'd be open to tracking it just to get a baseline of where you're at, not necessarily to do this forever, but it's interesting to plug a few days into something like Chronometer, see where that fat's falling, see how it kind of bounces in or out of those ranges, and dial up or back as needed and see how you feel. And just again, like I said, let time be your greatest ally here. Let this vision of you becoming healthy be the thing that convinces your fiance that, all right, this crazy guy is actually onto something, and maybe I want to put a little bit more butter in the diet, or I want to get more onto this train because he's doing well. So,
well, and just remember, this is something that I've really been paying attention to, especially over the last few years, getting into like the health and nutrition space, is things change.
Yeah.
Think of the cholesterol concept, right? People were like, don't eat cholesterol, it's going to kill you. And now we're learning that, the cholesterol in your food doesn't even really change your blood cholesterol, right? So just remember how things take time, especially, from the top, like the nutrition field. It's going to, I believe, take a really long time to actually come out with official recommendations and tell you like, hey, this is actually okay. What we're doing right now, like eating this way, focusing on these high quality fats, the nutrient dense sources of fat. It's going to take time, and I believe we will get there. It'll just be a matter of time.
Absolutely. How's that sound, Garrett? Does that help you with your question a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. You guys have a lot of great information. With the course of time with this animal-based diet, I've adopted obviously eating fat, and I find myself craving it now. Drinking bone broth in the morning.
So
and, I love butter on a ribeye steak. It's my favorite thing. Add a little honey, and I'm in heaven.
There you go.
I've been working out. I'm in my 40s now, and I've been working out, and I feel like these things are pretty much necessary for me to have the energy to return back to the gym the next day. I feel like my recovery is a lot faster than it was when I once upon a time was a vegetarian. And, just the consumption of fat, protein, and, light carbohydrates, I just feel like I'm killing it right now.
That's awesome. We hear that so many times, especially in our emails. Our email team is responding to hundreds a day, and so many people like yourself who have a background of vegan or vegetarianism start to include some of these most nutrient rich foods on the planet, and then all of a sudden they feel better than they ever have. And I know that this is something that I've experienced too.
Yeah. So, I mean, welcome back to this model, and I'm so glad you're feeling well. And really, this changing of the tide of what we're talking about here, and convincing people that all of this information needs to be updated, is going to happen through people like you, Garrett. It's going to happen through citizen scientists, being the change they wish to see in the world. So we really appreciate you calling in, man. Keep doing your thing. Your health is only going to get better, and you can age in reverse. Stay radical, my friend. And our last caller on the line, last but not least, is Griffin from Colorado. We got a college student with us who wants to, I think, adopt an animal-based diet on a budget. So Griffin, tell us the story, my friend. How can we support you?
Yeah.
Yes, hello. Thanks for having me on. I'm calling because I'm a college student, and I live active, kind of all over the place lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'm on a low budget, and so I'm just asking how people like me can eat animal-based, but also kind of live that idealistic lifestyle as well.
Yeah. Love it, man. Firstly, I just want to celebrate you for being a college person that is asking this question, because I think we all look back and say, man, I wish I'd have started this thing earlier. You know, nobody regrets starting sooner. So you're in a good spot, my friend. And the good news is, you know, it's possible to do an animal-based diet on a very budget-friendly kind of accommodation. Of course, this might mean a little bit of sacrificing certain areas of pristine quality, right? We might not be able to get fully regenerative, grass-fed and finished, this, that, and the other. And, you know, we might not be able to get the pasture-raised eggs. But we also, again, we're not striving for perfection here. We know that those are the level-up behaviors that we talk about. They're not the foundational pillars. And again, the foundation is really what we want to build on. So I think about going in the grocery store and buying, you know, these huge crates of eggs that are incredibly cheap. And again,
Costco.
it's on your budget to see where you can stretch that to, and always go to the kind of top end of that. But also knowing that eggs are very cheap, and dairy and yogurt is very high in protein and it's very cheap, and ground beef is very high and it's very cheap, and you can get these foods at a pretty budget friendly option. And I think sometimes it can be a little scary for people because they are in this lifestyle, they want to prioritize quality as much as possible, but also we've got to meet you where you're at, right? And you've got to meet your budget where it's at. And sometimes it might mean that, you know what, we'll get to that once college is done and we're out in the big bad world earning that money, then we can level up to all of this grass-fed and organic, this, that, and the other. But right now, your health is paramount and priority, and you could do this in a very budget-friendly way. So Dillon, talk to me about, like, you get this question a lot, I imagine, through the health success team. What is some of the tangible strategies you use to keep this kind of accessible for people?
Yeah, I think you covered like a large majority of it. I was just going to add a little bit of my personal experience because, you know, going through undergrad and then going to my master's program through PA school, I had to be low budget. And unfortunately, the beginning parts of those phases, I didn't know what nutrition did to my body. I didn't think about it much, but I began to learn about nutrition in PA school. I was one of the few programs out there that actually had 2 full semesters of nutrition. And I really began diving into this field. And this is why I'm here today. But just sticking to any type of ground beef, right? Don't get caught up with the grass-fed, grass-finished. I don't know if you could do like a Costco membership, but I had a Costco membership and I was actually able to get grass-fed ground beef for like $6 a pound, and a lot of it. And the eggs that you can get from Costco, there's a bunch of it, but I don't think you necessarily need a Costco membership in order to do this. You can still even go to Walmart, and I would advise you to look at Dr. Paul Saladino's CarnivoreMD's video on how to eat animal-based, I think for $10 a day. Yeah. And it's very eye-opening. You can get your fruit, you can get your organic honeys, you can get all of these animal-based foods at a pretty reasonable price for anyone like you and like I experienced during that time of my life on a low budget.
Yeah, and I think another thing is coming as you're speaking is also like the unconventional cuts, right? You know, you're probably not going to be dining on a diet full of ribeyes and fillets, but you can get oxtail 100%. And beef shanks and also buco cuts, and you can kind of go for these kind of, you know, just less, less popular cuts and find them really cheaply and shop the deals. And if when you find the deals, you know, it might mean that you spend $100 up front, but then you can put that in your freezer and you're going to have it for a long time. So I think there's a lot of ways to work around this. And of course, we have to finish with the organ piece, because 100%. That's the beautiful thing about organs is they are pretty cheap. Now, I know sometimes, especially being in college, you might not have access, to great grocery stores to find these, or even access to potentially being able to cook these in the way that you would like. So we want to hook you up as well as a thank you for joining the show. And we're going to make sure we get you with our success team to send you a bottle of beef organs as well to support you on this endeavor. But I hope that was helpful, Griffin. And it's a very important question, because we do believe and know that this diet is accessible and can be accessible for everyone. And it's just about a little bit of planning, a little bit of, shopping those deals, being able to go for the cheaper cuts, and you can be radically healthy with a radical budget.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add there, if this is something that you can do, if you have a group of friends that love this lifestyle, that's looking to save money, like doing a cow share can be, set you up for the year. Yeah. So
very true. I hope that helps, Griffin. How you feeling?
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you guys so much for having me and answering my question. Man. Great starting point.
Thanks for joining us. And enjoy those organs, okay? We'll see you soon.
Awesome.
Sweet.
All right, friends, that's it from the show today. Thank you for our callers. We love hearing from you and supporting you on the journey. Dillon, thank you very much for joining us. Do you have any closing thoughts, either summarizing our topic today of fertility and infertility, any reoccurring themes that you saw there in the calls, anything that's on your heart and mind that you want to share? Anything. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just can't, I can't say enough how important micronutrients are.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people are told that, or maybe they don't even know. And this is, why we're doing what we're doing, is just to educate and help people understand the value of real food.
Yeah.
Real nutrients, real micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, there's peptides, growth factors, other sources of these proteins that are vital to life, vital to feeling good, to being healthy, to being fertile. Yeah. So focus. This is why we want everyone, like as much as possible, just to focus on the micronutrients. Organs are, at the end of the day, the best sources of these micronutrients, and then continue progress, slow, steady, consistency. Over time, you will begin to feel the benefits, and that is ultimately what we're after as well, to feel better, to look better, to perform better,
I love
to have a baby.
That's
so
it.
Just really be intentional and ensure that you are hitting these micronutrient targets.
Yeah. I think, just to kind of put a bow on this one is what you're saying is that food is medicine, and we've got to remember that. We're not here to denigrate medicine and say they're getting it all wrong and these things aren't helpful. We're not here to throw shade. We're here to just say, let's widen the scope and let's really think about empowering ourselves again. If we're only able to get pregnant, able to get healthy, able to find our health through these institutions, through the medical model, it's a very disempowering lens. It robs us of our own role in this. It robs us of our personal responsibility and sovereignty to actualize our health and take it back, to add in the organs, to build up our micronutrient stores again so that we can fully thrive and ultimately, come back into this fertility conversation. But even from our callers today, just hearing those stories, I went against the grain. I started to do what I was told I shouldn't do. I'm eating all this red meat. I'm eating fats. I'm getting rid of the things that have been lauded on the food pyramid as this golden child of nutrition, these heart-healthy whole grains. But I'm getting rid of all that. I feel better. I'm removing these things. Again, this idea of being the change you wish to see in the world and becoming these citizen scientists, because we're going to change the tide here. And that's what it's all about. Food is medicine. And no matter how crazy life gets, no matter what's going on, we always choose what we put in our mouth, right? Every single time. And we shouldn't abdicate that responsibility. And we don't need to be perfect either, but we can all do better. We all can. Myself included, Dillon included, every one of us. And that's all we're trying to do. So remember, you are in charge of a lot more than you think you are. You are not confined to this sick curse system. Health is around the corner. It's possible. We're going to get there. We're going to get there together. So there we have it, friends. What an episode. Thanks again to you, Dillon, for coming on the show and providing all of that value. Tell the listeners where they can find everything that we're up to here. The documentary we mentioned earlier in the podcast, the information, how they can stay up to date with all of this cutting edge information, and where they can find the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at heartandsoil.co. That is our website. You can email us at radicalhealth@heartandsoil.co, and you will be hooked up with one of our health guides. And if you're looking to view the animal-based fertility film, you can go to our YouTube channel, and the video is called Nourished.
There you have it. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We want you to call into the show, so please head over to radicalhealthradio.com, and there you will find instructions on how to be a part of our show and get your questions answered live. We hope this has been incredibly valuable to you, and if it has, please follow, like, subscribe, and leave us a review on your podcast platform. It helps us spread this message of radical health. We'll see you every Wednesday with new episodes. Big love, Radical Health Seekers. See you soon.